Hello and welcome to part one of one Realtor Associate Training for the Employee Benefits Directors of Hero Home Source. Hero Home Source is a division of Fellowship Builders and is not affiliated with Outsource Works or Exit Realty International or Exit Realty Florida. It is a sole proprietor nonprofit organization based out of Delaware, and its intention is very, very clear: to serve the heroic contributors to our society, be they law enforcement, firefighters, teachers, or armed forces personnel. And today we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how you're going to work together with Hero Home Source to represent us in your local community. So welcome to part one of three Realtor training for the Employee Benefits Director position of Hero Home Source. Chip Isabella is the National Sales Director for Hero Home Source. He has an extensive experience in the employee benefits arena, including residential real estate and insurance, for about the last 25 years, and we're proud to have him continue to support the Hero Home Source initiative nationally. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. I'm the Advisory Council Chairperson for the Real Estate Brokerage Division of Hero Home Source. My position exists to support Hero Home Source in their efforts within the real estate community. My background is extensive in the residential real estate industry with RE/MAX Prudential and Better Homes and Gardens. We did implement law enforcement, teacher, and firefighter appreciation programs back in the 80s through the 90s. And then by 2000, I opened my own brokerage in South Florida. We grew it to one of the larger facilities in Florida, made it to the top 240 real estate brokerages in the country, and we were still remain the largest grossing brokerage in the history of Exit Realty Corp International. Today I run a company called Outsource Works with a product called Associate Works that we've introduced into the marketplace, and I'm the acting regional director of Exit Realty Florida. So I want to welcome you once again to part one of three. This is probably, in my estimation, part one is the most important piece of the puzzle for you, and I want to try to explain why. Our course objectives today are serious to me on a personal level, and I want to share with you what they are. We need to instill a higher sense of purpose in every individual who represents Hero Home Source in the local territories. A higher sense of purpose, serving something that's larger than yourself or just the immediate income needs of you and or your family. The higher sense of purpose is to the heroes pictured on the left: the law enforcement, the firefighters, the teachers, and the armed forces, and hopefully we'll be able to do that today. Today we're going to define the specific reason that the program exists. We're going to highlight some presentation salient points. What are the key points that you're going to have to know about Hero Home Source when you represent us in the field? Chip is going to introduce some of the marketing materials as a direct result of this new relationship. They are available on the members only section of the Hero Home Source website. It's a quite extensive and growing array of marketing products and materials that you'll be given as a member of the Hero Home Source family of professionals. And then we're going to set a plan of action into motion. We're going to really show you a step-by-step action plan that you can begin to take right away in your local market. Of course, all of this centers around the law of reciprocity, this karmic justice, or this pay it forward concept where the employer wins, the employee wins, and you win. But in addition to the result, there has to be an intention. There has to be an intention. And I want to talk about my intentions when we created the Hero Home Source model back in the mid to late 80s. I was just a young RE/MAX agent. I graduated high school in 1986, and one of my good friends was a young man named Bryant Penny. Bryant Penny and I were involved in a leadership program called Encounter at St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and that Encounter program puts groups of 10 or 12 teenagers in a room for a week and had them go through leadership exercises and build relationships. And Bryant Penny was in my Encounter group for my senior year, and I became quite good friends with him. And about 5 or 6 years after graduation, he and his identical twin brother went to the police academy and became Fort Lauderdale cops. One evening in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, just south of Davie Boulevard on Federal Highway, Bryant Penny made a routine stop of a four-door sedan and stepped outside of his automobile to issue probably a routine traffic citation. The gentleman who was in the driver's side of the car jumped out of his car and took off running as soon as the car was pulled over. And Bryant led chase through the evening, late evening of a regular day in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He chased this young man across the Federal Highway, and as he got closer and closer to the assailant, finally pulled a gun out of his jacket and turned and shot Bryant Penny in the chest. Bryant Penny died on site on Federal Highway, and the officer down call went out over the radio, and his brother Todd, who was a identical twin and graduated with us that same year, overheard the officer down call on the radio that his brother had been shot and killed in the evening on a routine traffic stop. These cops do a lot of things, and some of you may or may not know some of the things that are required of a police officer in daily task. My father was a Fort Lauderdale cop for about 26 years, and when he was in his early 60s, maybe 10 years ago, he and I were on a trip. We rented a couple Harleys and rode around Colorado a couple years back, and when we were on that trip, he told me about a call that he was on when he was in his early 30s as a young patrolman in Fort Lauderdale, and he was called to a domestic residence, 911. He showed up at the residence, and there was a young lady in the doorway crying that her baby was in the crib and needed some help. Well, there were two young boys in the house with her when he walked in, and there was an infant in the crib. She was pounding on his back and telling him to help her resuscitate her baby, and my dad began CPR on an infant that he was already well aware had passed away, and he radioed for 911 dispatch of a ambulance to the residence. But as he stayed there for the 10 or 15 minutes it took for the ambulance to get there, he had to perform CPR on a lifeless, cold infant in a crib, because if he didn't continue to perform CPR, the mother would have suspected that he wasn't doing everything he could to keep her baby alive. But he was well trained, and he knew that the baby had already passed away. He continued to perform CPR. While the mother cried and the young children in the room were asking him for help. And pretty interesting to have your dad tell you that story 30 years later, and to think of the way that these gentlemen are, ladies and gentlemen, are affected by the job that they do every day. So some of you know local heroes, and you know some of these stories as well. I would say in order to qualify to be an employee benefits director, you must serve a higher purpose. You must understand that this is not just a business relationship, that this is a relationship that you're taking the front end responsibility off of our shoulders in your local market to appreciate and honor these professionals that make these sacrifices on your behalf. They're the people that keep our society safe, and they're the people that represent our communities and keep the bad guys off the street. My brother was a former Marine. when he returned from the original Desert Storm under George Bush Sr., he was kind of messed up. He always had been a little bit crooked and cockeyed, but when he came back from Desert Storm, he sat on the floor of a house that I own in Margate and cried for a good solid hour one night, telling me about some of the things that he was responsible for in the Desert Storm wars. He ended up not doing well out in public life and ended up re-enlisting in the Army after being honorably discharged from the Marine Corps, having served in Desert Storm. He just didn't feel like he could make it in public life as a citizen, so he re-enlisted into the Army just a few years after being honorably discharged because he needed to be back in the service in order to feel a sense of structure and camaraderie. My brother-in-law Scott Isabella, Chip's older brother, I'm sorry, I think he's his younger brother, was also a Marine. He passed away a few years ago, and Chip and I both attended his funeral, and to see the American Legion come out in such force at his funeral was rather awe-inspiring, to say the least. Left you very, very emotional when they folded that flag and gave it to his wife, and to watch his stepson sitting there next to his wife as he was buried with a 21 gun salute and the flags and the honor corps of the United States service personnel. Just really humbles you. My nephew is a 25 or 26-year-old boy who's a former Marine as well, and he lost a lot of hearing in his left ear. He receives a disability check from the United States government every month because an explosion that occurred on the left side of his face took out most of his hearing. He also has some of his some problems with his Achilles heel and his foot because of the work that he did in the Marine Corps. And he's just a very young man. But I was also very moved by the most recent Medal of Honor recipient, who was honored by President Obama at the White House for his service in this war in Afghanistan, where he was pulling his dead brothers out of enemy fire, and was witnessed by a helicopter pilot running into fire of the enemy just to go get his brothers who had already fallen in the area that was under attack. In some people's mind, there would be no reason to go back in there and get those kids out, but he decided that he didn't want to leave them in there, and he trucked right back in there and made 6 or 7 trips under hostile fire to save the remains, mostly, of the kids that were killed in there. And he was honored and interviewed on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago. I happened to catch that. You've got to deeply appreciate this service to our country if you're going to represent us. Instilling a higher sense of purpose is a responsibility that I take seriously. If you don't feel like this is an appropriate sector of your business to really be sincere about honoring these professionals and have a strong sense of duty to them, then we would prefer that you didn't participate with us. My wife is a school teacher. Carrie Krumenacker is a former educator and administrator in the school board of Broward County. And Chip Isabella's wife is a school teacher. So the three of us all have deep ties to these school systems, and public school system and private school system. Unfortunately, a teacher starts at about $35,000 a year. They purchase their own supplies. In most cases, they're given a small stipend. It doesn't cover the expense of the supplies that they need to run a classroom. Their benefits have been cut. As my son just went under an MRI. It cost our family $1,500 to do an MRI on my son with the insurance provided from the school board because the benefits have been cut so drastically. And it's kind of cute because they used to justify teachers had to work short days, and they could underpay them because you got so many days off in the summer. Well, the fact is this: they don't work short days anymore. They get up at 6 and they leave the school at about 4:30 or 5. So their days are just as long, if not longer, than most of yours. and they don't really get the whole summer off anymore because there's 2 weeks after the school year ends and 2 weeks before the school year begins that they're required to be there. There's also about 40 meetings during the 90 days of the school summer off. So you end up with, a fair and equitable break from the school year. And of course, you do get your holidays and your, spring break, but in my estimation, they put in just as many hours as anybody on the other end of this line, and they earn a considerable lower threshold. As a matter of fact, I would challenge you to do the math. If you just got off your rear end and sold 6 homes a year, you'd out earn any teacher on the block in the Broward County school system. So consider yourself paying back a debt to society for the education of the emerging young leaders of our communities, and how these folks make a selfless contribution. When it comes to firefighters, of course, you think of those climbing up the stairs while the others were climbing down the stairs, 80, 90 flights of stairs with all that gear on, going up into the smoke instead of coming down out of the danger. And you think of New York 10 years ago and you saw those buildings fall. If that doesn't do it for you, I'm going to tell you that one of my best buddies that I've been friends with since the mid 80s explained to me on one of his daily trips on a normal call as an EMT, emergency medical technician, he was required to pull a 2-year-old infant out of a pool. His memory was singed with that for the rest of his life, and that sacrifice seems, well, that's his job. Yeah, it is his job. But at $30,000 to $50,000 a year, he's willing to do some of the things that you might not be willing to do. And we particularly honor these professionals for the work that they do, specifically the emotional trauma and the weight that is on you when you pull up to a traffic homicide and there's a family in the car that you have to remove their remains. I think it is a pretty serious experience that these young men and women go through. I'm going to make one last dig on your heartstrings on this one. A good buddy of mine became dive certified EMT a couple years ago. It's a certification that only a couple dozen members of his profession achieve in any given geographic area. They need about 12 of them in Dade County, I guess, that are dive certified. This dive certification takes several weeks to earn, and you must go through a tremendous amount of training. What surprised me is that the training is as much emotional as it is physical. That part of the dive certification process for an EMT is to understand what a corpse looks like if it's been underwater for several days, and that when you are called to a scene, that at some point in the exercise you may be required to enter an automobile that has been underwater for more than 24 hours, and the scene that you will encounter when you get there is pretty heavy, visually and emotionally, certainly. Now, that dive certification achieves a $1,600 stipend in increased pay for the 12 professionals who are dive certified EMT for that particular fire station. That's $1,600 a year to go down underwater and get a family out of a car that's been underwater for 24 hours. I hate to belabor this point, but I know there are realtors on this line right this minute that will not drive across town for a rental that pays $1,600 and go into an air-conditioned building and show a lease for $1,600. This gentleman became dive certified to pull emergency victims out of underwater crashes, and for $1,600 a year stipend. So I'm just trying to put things in perspective when we instill this higher sense of purpose. For you to qualify to be a Hero Home Source representative or an employee benefits director, you've got to make an emotional connection to these things that we just talked about. If you don't, please, please, please send us an email. get the heck out of here. We don't need to work with somebody who doesn't get the core ideology of this organization and doesn't understand or comprehend the sacrifices these people make. If you're going at this like, hey, this is a farm like any other farm, or this is an opportunity for me to pound on and make money, slam bam, thank you ma'am, we'd rather you move on. We want to know that you have an emotional connection to the core ideology of our organization, and that is serving the heroes of our local communities. But this is kind of counterintuitive, a little bit of irony here. What is the specific reason that Hero Home Source exists? If you see at the top, it says to make more money. To make more money. That's the specific reason that Hero Home Source exists for you, our professional network, so that you personally can make more money. Now, is that a contradiction? Is that a bit of irony that in all this humble servant, emotional conversation, that the real underlying value or the real underlying purpose of Hero Home Source to exist is for our professionals to make more money? And that is true. But I want to acknowledge this sentence. It might be a run-on sentence. We don't have a grammar degree here, but I'll tell you, to reward the contributors towards our society's security and continual development while simultaneously generating income for the professionals who serve them. If you chop that sentence in half and you say that we exist solely to reward the contributors to our society's security and continual development, it doesn't work, because we don't have enough money to throw millions of dollars in philanthropy towards these groups without generating income. So we say that it's a two-piece plan. To reward the contributors to our society's security and continual development, yes, and simultaneously generating income for the professionals who serve them. So if we don't make you more money, then you're not available for us to serve our core group. So it's a two-pronged piece, but it ultimately revolves around you making more money. You have to ask yourself this question during part one of 3 in this training endeavor. Is it possible to give generously and create a livelihood at the same time? We know from 15, 18, 20 years of experience doing this with others that it is very possible. In fact, it's not only possible, it's probable and likely that if you give generously, that you're going to get back more than what you gave. That's just it's almost a biblical principle that if you give generously, you'll be able to create a livelihood at the same time. So we're gonna harp on that throughout our relationship in 26 weeks of coaching, and as this relationship continues, that it is possible to give generously and create a livelihood at the same time. The bundled services rebates average between $1,600 and $2,000 for a $100,000 home, $22 to $25 for a $200,000 home, and up on a $300,000 home, it's up to $3,000, and I've seen them even be more than that on a $300,000 home, and of course it goes up and up and up. Here's how Hero Home Source works. A realtor has to agree to a 25% of gross commission income rebate in order to participate in the program. Your local mortgage lender can participate until we have a Hero Home Source mortgage lender in your area. You can work with anybody you want for now, but they have to agree to give a half a point back off their lowest rate or some flat fee rebate that's equal to that half a point, and they have to agree to it prior to application being made. And your local title company, until we present one to you that's a Hero Home Source approved vendor in your area, would have to agree to give them a minimum of $250 up to a maximum of $750, depending on the size of the house they bought. So with that said, I'm going to show you a little bit more of the salient points of the presentation that you'll make. Number one, you're really just selling money. It ain't a hard sell. I like that new commercial where the kid says, do you want 50% more money? And the little baby says, no, I don't want 50% more money. Well, he found out of 100% of the people polled, there were only one person that said they didn't want more money. That's kind of how this works. No, nobody really turns this down. I've never went into a cop's living room and said, "Hey, do you want an extra $2,500?" and they say no. So it's not a hard sale. Don't make it more complicated than it is. But there are some salient points besides the money that I want to make clear to you right now. Number one, it is a nationwide network of professionals that are intentional about serving police, firefighters, teachers, and armed forces personnel. It's a formalized legal procedure, and it's RESPA compliant and HUD compliant for a HUD 1 closing statement. It works with most lending institutions' guidelines, so it is formalized and legal. It is a nonprofit organization. I think it's a very important distinction between us and some of the other employee benefits companies out there. We're a nonprofit organization where every penny that comes into Hero Home Source is reinvested to serve more heroes and populate the program and present it to more groups of professionals. We've been honoring heroes for more than 25 years, and that's a fact, since 1986 in Broward County, Florida, when we began the first law enforcement appreciation program. We've got hundreds of satisfied testimonials that we're going to continue to build on, press releases, and adding more content to our website over time. Hero Home Source provides large rebates and incentives to our heroes. We provide an extra level of VIP care and attention to these because this is an important group of people to us. We also provide short sale and foreclosure counsel. We've got a network of attorneys who will provide free consultation to the heroes. We also have a short sale facilitating organization that has had proven track records and charges the hero no money to provide the short sale facilitation and or negotiation process for them. And they're also a legal firm that provides this. So they have free legal representation if they use the Hero Home Source approved vendors for short sale and or foreclosure counsel. We provide special grants and programs from the United States government and some other private entities that provide grants and programs for these people to buy and or sell homes. And we've been really conscious about expanding our network of discounters right down from Barnes & Noble to Toyota of Toyota Distributors of America. Little things like Dunkin' Donuts or anybody that honors these heroes with a special discount or incentive. I was very pleased to see there were a lot of 15 to 20% discounts available in a lot of organizations, be it Lowe's, Home Depot, Sears, Barnes & Noble, Office Depot. They all have great programs for the heroes, and it's our job to expand our network of discounters to provide more value to our members and ultimately more value to the heroes. We're going to provide you over the next 26 weeks several scripts and dialogues and presentations that you can use. But I think at the heart of it, I want to say this in part 1 of 3, don't get out of your own way a little bit. Get out of your own way a little bit and quit thinking it to death. All you really got to do is go visit a teacher, a principal, a firefighter, or a leader in the fire station and say to them, hey, we got this cool program. You want to hear a little bit about it. And when you're comfortable with the program, they're comfortable with you. When you're uncomfortable with it, they're uncomfortable with it. So your law enforcement script and your teacher script are available for you, but why don't you just look yourself in the mirror and say, what do you really believe? If you can look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself what you really believe about this, then you're going to be fine when you get in the field. You don't need a script. I mean, you're only selling money. How hard is it to sell money? It's not that hard. So you're just giving away money. So don't make anything complex about this. This isn't a dot all your I's and cross all your T's, hyperactive kind of like conscientious, nervous decision. This is, hey, do I think it's right to give back a little bit to this community? And that's really as simple as it can get. There's a group of frequently asked questions on our website, and I'm going to encourage you to read them all and understand them, because these are the questions that your employees and your employers will be asking you out in the field. We're going to do quick math, and then in part 2 of 3, we're going to break down the math a little bit stronger. But ultimately, when you make a presentation to a cop, a firefighter, a teacher, or or an armed forces professional, it's as simple as doing this one slide. I mean, look, when you buy a home, you get money back. Would you want that? $1,550, $2,700, $3,900 for these. These are proof is in the pudding ones. These have been done already, and these rebates are subject to local, state, and federal laws. And some lenders have very specific requirements, so we need to know what those are. So there's a little disclaimer at the bottom. One other blue and white screen that you can use to make this presentation is the bundled services of having sold a home with a Hero Home Source Employee Benefits Director and then subsequently buying another home, so that the rebate would compound to the total of a $4,125 rebate for someone who buys and sells a home. So that's another very, very easy way to lock up a customer's loyalty. And then in closing, Hero Home Source acts as a consultative resource to some of these other programs: Good Neighbor Next Door, HUD, VA mortgage, $1 homes, foreclosure, short sale. So why don't you get out your fingertips and go to the Google website and type in some of these names and learn about them as a Hero Home Source Employee Benefits Director. We're going to encourage you to know the vernacular, know the dialogue that you're going to want to be having with these folks about these programs, and we just want to encourage you to get passionate and learn your craft, especially as it relates to the special programs and incentives. Wouldn't it be a neat conversation starter to say, have you ever really understood the Dollar Homes program? Well, you better understand it to have that conversation, right? Steer your prospects to the Hero Home Source site and let them dig around and sign up. If they sign up, they're yours, okay? They're going to name you as their affiliate in their local employee benefits director on the site. So when you ask them to sign up, they can make an application and sign up as a cop or a firefighter. I'm going to real quick close on a plan of action. You've got to complete the additional training modules. There's 2 more after this one. You've got to schedule your monthly work routine. That's something that's imperative, that you have a schedule, a monthly work routine. Successful people are ritualistic by nature. So we're going to ask you to weekly marketing activities. You're going to have very specific weekly marketing activities that you're going to need to complete. You're going to do weekly professional presentations to the leaders. You're going to attend a bi-weekly coaching call with Hero Home Source. That's every other week. So your monthly work routine is as simple as 1, 2, 3, right? The only other thing we're going to ask you to do is we're going to ask you to provide us with a report where we can verify what you've done in your local marketplace as a Hero Home Source rep. And that monthly report is a requirement of the relationship. It's not a time it doesn't take a lot of time, but it is something you've got to do. Develop a time blocking ritual. The best professionals in every industry block time, and we're going to ask of you that you set aside a minimum of 5 hours per week that is required of you to qualify for the income and production guarantee offered by Hero Home Source. A 5-hour-a-week commitment isn't too terrible, I don't think. And I'll just say that if you have a family to feed or you have bills to pay, what I might recommend is that you allocate about 20 hours to the Hero Home Source endeavor, because on a personal note, I will tell you that 79% of all realtors in North America make less than $39,000 a year. I will tell you that you are a victim of your own procrastination. You're typically a victim of your own fear, your own hesitations to take action, and to allocate 20 hours in a structured area that has this much direction would serve you very, very well if you've never yet made more than $50,000 in commissions as a realtor professional. So I would like to encourage you, not require you, but encourage you to consider a 20-hour-a-week time block for Hero Home Source if you're one of those folks that have never made more than $50,000 in any calendar year as a real estate professional. It's my pleasure to represent you as a advisory council chair for Hero Home Source, and I'll encourage you to go on to step 2 and 3 of the opportunity and see how we look after you finish your 3 trainings. Thanks very much.